Guys, welcome back to another video. Hope you're all having a great day. And with no further ado, let's get into the Week 16 recap. Starting back on Thursday with the crazy Rams Seahawks game. Um, and I mean Seattle, despite the bad start, looked really good at the end. Now I don't know if they're a Super Bowl contender, but I mean this was a really good win, showing that they can bounce back after being down early. Sam Darnold had a slow start, but did play really well at the end. This defense didn't get off to the best start, and you really would hope one of the better defenses would be able to stop a top tier offense, but they did shut down LA for the most part in the second half. Um, their first place, and if they win their final two games, they get the top seed, and they control who goes through the NFC. For the Rams, I mean, disappointing because you're up 16 in the fourth quarter. He shouldn't blow leads like that. I get, the 2 point conversion that made no sense, but I mean, it might be like LA special teams might just be the reason they don't make it far because multiple games this year they've kind of lost because of their special teams. The Eagles game earlier in the year, they had multiple block kicks that helped the Eagles come back in that game. Wasn't the only reason, but and then this game, the huge punt return, and then the missed kick at the end when they could have won the game in regulation. Um, they still technically can get the number one seed. They have a lot of things to go their way, but it's just this is a Rams team that should be a Super Bowl contender, but when you blow a double digit lead like that, when you have everything in front of you, it is hard to say this team can go all the way. Moving on to the Saturday games, the Eagles at the Commanders. I mean, Philly's offense early on did not play well, which seems to be a running theme this year, where the team just doesn't play well early on and then just picks it up as the game goes along. I do think that is a concern, especially when you go up against some of the better teams in the playoffs. But they clinched the NFC East, and for the first time since I think 03, 04, there will be a back-to-back champion in the NFC East. Um, so you're getting a home playoff game. Who knows how much more, but I think there are huge questions in Philly, and they need to address them, whether that's making moves to help out the coaching staff, the players. Um, Moving on for Washington. I mean, they played well. I mean, when you have your backup quarterback in against one of the better defenses in the league, it's kind of hard to win many games like that, but they kept it competitive. Now, Josh Johnson most likely will be playing on Christmas Day because Marcus Mariota seems to be out. Um, so a third string quarterback for Washington in what's been a bad season, but hey, maybe you can pull off an upset in one of the final 2 weeks and enter the off season with maybe some renewed hope after what's been a challenging year for a team that probably had Super Bowl aspirations after last season. Moving on to Bears at the Packers. I mean, give credit to Chicago. They did not play well for 3 quarters and probably half of the fourth quarter, but it's not about how you start, it's about how you finish. And this team played really well. Um, you know, Caleb did not play the greatest, but this defense made plays to keep this offense in the game. And when you give the Bears a shot, it seems like they come back from anything. They did clinch a playoff berth with the Lions losing. If they beat the Niners this week, you clinch the NFC North for the first time since 2018. Hopefully, brighter things are in store for this Bears team. For Green Bay, I mean, I get Jordan Love was um out with a concussion, but Malik Willis was playing better than Caleb Williams. And they had a shot to win this game, be back in first place. And now Willis is also injured. He got injured at the end of the fourth quarter before overtime. And they still have a path, obviously, to, because I think if they win one more game, then they would clinch a playoff spot. So it's not over, but a Packers team that just a couple weeks ago seemed like they'd be competing for the top seed in the NFC might just be a first round exit once again. A team that's really talented, but it's just they somehow find ways to lose these games. Maybe it comes back on coaching, who knows? But another year where Green Bay starts off well, but then fizzles out at the end, and whether it's due to injuries or whether it's just this team isn't the greatest come December, is for anything. Moving on to the Sunday games, Bucks at the Panthers. I mean, Carolina has been an up and down team, but you gotta love them. I mean, for the first time since 2017, Carolina has a shot to make the playoffs. Now they probably aren't gonna do much. Um, Seeing as they're most likely gonna play whoever is second place in the NFC West and get destroyed. But hey, this is a building block for a Panthers team that just a couple years ago finished with 2 wins and gave up the first overall pick because they traded away in the Bryce Young trade. So you got to give credit to Carolina for fighting, and maybe they can pull off an upset against Seattle and possibly shake things up. For the Bucks, big changes I think need to happen. I mean, this team was 5-1 at one point. Seemed like they were going to be a Super Bowl contender, and they just don't look. They're 7-8 now, and it's just crazy how they've only won one game since their bye week, which was against the Cardinals, who are not a very good team. And Todd Bowles and this coaching staff needs to be moved on from, because it's clear that they're just not getting the best out of what's a really talented roster. And it just goes to show you that even if you have a really talented roster, if you don't have a good coaching staff, it's always going to hold you back to being the true contender that you are. I think the Bucks need to realize that you need to move on from Todd Bowles and this coaching staff, because this NFC South is wide open, and the Bucks, with how talented they are the most talented team in that division. If they don't win the division this year, it's going to be seen as a letdown with how many expectations this team had. Moving on to the Bills at the Browns. And for Buffalo, they clinched the playoff spot because the Colts lost on Monday Night Football. And while this Bills team got off to a great start and then couldn't do much in the second half, you got to give credit to this defense for shutting down not a great Browns offense, but just being able to make sure that they were keeping the lead in this game. And they're 11-4. They still have a path technically to be the 1 seed, especially with Denver losing. But they have the Eagles this week and then the Jets. Maybe they win both of those and hope Denver or New England, well, New England, Denver and New England both lose at least one game. But this Bills team is a team that should be a scare in the playoffs, but there's also huge concerns with a game like this. For the Browns, I mean, you maybe just hope that this team stays competitive in their final 2 games. Kevin Stefanski maybe should be let go. I mean, it seems like most people believe he should be fired, but at the same time, does Cleveland maybe say, hey, if we just had the right quarterback, maybe he could do something? But this Browns team, you just hope to stay competitive in your final two games and enter the offseason hoping to add more young talent to an already talented team and hopefully brighter things are in the future. For the Chargers at the Cowboys, I mean, give credit to LA. They've won four straight off their bye, and a team that most people probably would have said weren't going to make the playoffs or are going to be a first round exit. They might be able to win one, maybe two playoff games because despite losing both tackles and having to play backups, Justin Herbert has played really well. And this defense is one of the best in the league. And the Chargers technically do still have a shot to win the AFC West. If they win out, they win it. And, well, that would just be a huge season for a Chargers team that's been decimated by injuries on the offensive side. It would be a huge sigh of relief if they potentially could get the number one seed when all said. For Dallas, I mean, it's been an up and down year. You hope that you can finish out the year strong with back-to-back wins against the Commanders and Giants and get to the offseason looking to improve this defense, keep George Pickens, and really build on a season that they almost made the playoffs but just came up short. And hey, if you're the Cowboys, you just say, if we just make the right moves in the offseason, they can be back to be contending in an NFC East that very much is in question with the other three teams in that conference. Moving on to the Jets at the Saints. And look, New Orleans has won three straight. And, I know everybody's going to say, why would they win games? Wouldn't they want a top pick? But it's like, if you're a young team, you want to be able to get these wins and get some momentum entering the offseason. You don't want to end on a losing streak. And Tyler Shuck has looked really good. I mean, the last couple of games, he's been playing really well. New Orleans should give him a shot in 2026 to see if he's the guy. And you just hope that this team brings in more talent around him. And look, in an NFC South where anybody seems to be able to win it, especially with the Bucks not being very good this year, I think the Saints, if they make the right moves, they could be a potential threat next year. Because if Shuck takes those leaps that most young QBs take in year two, he could be a special player. For the Jets, it's been a lost year. When you start an undrafted free agent quarterback, things don't usually tend out to work well. The Jets are just hoping to get a top pick, get one of the top QBs, and hopefully build on this season with the young talent they have on that roster. Just continue to build, and maybe in the near future, the Jets can hopefully get back to being a contender. Moving on to Vikings at Giants. Minnesota, I mean, J.J. McCarthy before the injury looked decent. Didn't look amazing, but showed flashes. I do think it is a concern that he has been banged up so much this season. Now, maybe that goes on the offensive line not being fully healthy for the most part. But I do think it is a concern. McCarthy's long injury history. Now that he's started in the NFL since last year. But they're 7-8. They have a potential shot to eliminate the Lions on Christmas with a win. And maybe potentially, if the Packers aren't playing for anything, beat them and finish on a nice 5-game winning streak, finish above 500 potentially, and maybe finish out strong on what's been a disappointing season, but hopefully they can end on a high note for what's been an interesting year for the Vikings. For the Giants, I mean, you just kind of hope that you keep games close, kind of like the Browns. You keep these games close, but you ultimately lose them. Like last year, the Giants kind of, or yeah, last year, the Giants kind of won, like the past 2 years, actually, 23 and 24, they kind of won too many games at the end of the year, kind of knocked them out of the QB conversation. Hopefully this year, you have your guy in Jackson Dart, but you probably want to get that top pick and trade it away and do what the Bears did, get a lot of draft capital to build around your young quarterback. So you just want to keep these games competitive and ultimately lose them. Now they do play the Raiders next week, and what will most certainly be the loser gets the top pick. But if you're the Giants, you just want to see growth from Dart, this young team, and hopefully move into 2026 with a better coach and a lot more exciting things in store. Moving on to Chiefs at the Titans. And look, Tennessee looked really good. Cam Ward probably had his best game all season. And I get it was the game that you're like, oh, why would the Titans want to win? But look, you want to get wins down the stretch. You want to see these young guys on Tennessee play well to show that there is some potential, and they get the win. It was against a Chiefs team that was banged up. Hey, if you're the Titans, a win is a win. Hopefully, they bring in the right coach, and this team can hopefully build on this team for the future. For the Chiefs, sad news that Gardner Minshew did tear his ACL, and they're going to be starting a third string quarterback for the final 2 games. But it's been an interesting year. Big changes might be happening in KC. You know, maybe Andy Reid retires, maybe Travis Kelce retires. Who knows? But this Chiefs team that desperately needs a reset maybe gets that with this bad year, and they're able to reload for whenever Mahomes is back, whether he comes back 2026 or whether it's later on, maybe 2027, depending on how long the recovery period is. Moving on to the Bengals at the Dolphins. And I mean, Cincinnati, after getting shut out by the Ravens last week, played really well. The defense made plays, the offense looked really good. Um, and you are kind of frustrated because this team shows this potential when the team's eliminated, not when they were still fighting for a playoff spot. But I do think this team needs to move on from Zach Taylor. It is clear that he is just not the right guy. Now, will the Bengals do it? That's another question. But I think if you're the Bengals, you just hope that they make the right moves this offseason. Because this team has missed the playoffs in now 3 consecutive seasons. And while you can blame injuries, you also have to start to realize this team is not very good. And you got to be able to change things if you actually want to get back. For the Dolphins, I mean, Quinn Ewers played fine. I mean, both of his interceptions were tipped passes, so that's kind of not on him. Um, but I mean, this is a Dolphins team that clearly has bigger issues than just Tua, and I think this team needs to, find the right GM and be able to bring in talent that can help this team out into the future to where maybe Miami can actually look like a contender and not just a flashy team that isn't going to play well in the playoffs. Went on to the 4 o'clock game, starting with Falcons at the Cardinals. Atlanta, I mean, it's just too late for them. They start playing well, at the end of the year when they have nothing to play for. You kind of hoped this team earlier in the year when they were playing, a lot of one score losses. Maybe you win some of those games and then you're still contending in the NFC South. But Raheem Morris still needs to be fired. I don't think a couple wins at the end of the year should really change how this team views this coaching staff, and maybe keep around Kirk Cousins. I mean, there's a lot of speculation on when Michael Penix will be back next year. Maybe you keep Cousins, start off the year and because he's now 2 years removed from that torn ACL, so he might be back to mostly healthy, and maybe you start him at least early on in 2026 and at least be competitive instead of just throwing out a guy like what the Cardinals did a couple of years ago when Kyler got injured. Speaking of the Cardinals, um, it's just a lost year, and this team needs to move on from Jonathan Gannon, maybe even the GM Monty Ossenfort. I mean, you don't start 2-0 and then lose 12 of your next 13 games. That doesn't just randomly happen. This team is not very good, and well, there are pieces that I do like on this team. A new coaching staff, maybe even a new general manager needs to be brought in to help this team out, because this team needs just a fresh reset, and hopefully they get that. Put on to the Jags at the Broncos, and I mean, give credit to Jacksonville. I mean, since being 4-3 off their bye, they have won 7 of their last 8, 6 straight. And this team has looked really good ever since that Texans blown lead when they were up 19 and then they gave up 26 unanswered. Um, this defense is one of the better units in the league and really are able to shut down offenses, like we saw with the Chargers and now with the Broncos. And this offense is really starting to play well. Trevor Lawrence maybe finally found the right coach to unlock that Clemson Trevor. ETN played really good. Parker Washington. I mean, this team is looking really good, and they potentially can make a Super Bowl one with how good this team is both offensively and defensively. For Denver, it was kind of a gut check. You kind of lose. It's kind of like last week when the Pats lost to the Bills. Like, you kind of want this loss to come at home so you can be like, hey, we know that like we're not unbeatable and we will take losses, and they use this to win their final 2 games, get the 1 seed, and they can still make the Super Bowl. This offense is still not elite, but I think as long as this defense plays better than it did against this Jags offense, and the offense plays just slightly better, this team is still very talented. Just because they lost 1 game does not mean they are automatically not going to make it to the Super Bowl. Moving on to the Steelers at the Lions. I mean, crazy ending where it was 2 offensive passing interference calls that denied Detroit 2 touchdowns. For the Steelers, I mean, they're 9-6. They're going to win the AFC North. I don't think Cleveland's going to beat them. And this team is going to be a first round exit. They're not going to make it further, but just another year of Tomlin getting to 9 wins and securing an above 500 record for the Lions. And I don't want to say this team's window is shut because they still have a lot of talented players, but I do think maybe they need to consider moving on from Jared Goff, because we've seen a lot of times against very good pass rush. And I know the Lions O-line has been banged up, but we've seen against good pass rush, Goff just isn't like any other quarterback. He just can't escape the pocket, and he's a liability when he can't make like those moves to escape the pressure and with how talented this Lions team is, I think maybe you gotta consider moving on from Goff because while yes, he is a very talented quarterback, he just maybe is a little past his expiration date, I guess you could say. And I think this Lions team needs to maybe realize, hey, we maybe need to bring in a QB who is more mobile, who can escape pressure and give our weapons opportunities to make those plays because Wolkoff is a very good quarterback. He just maybe isn't the guy anymore. And maybe the Lions need to realize that they need to move on from him. We're on to the Raiders at the Texans. And I mean, Houston kept their playoff hopes. I mean, kept their AFC South hopes alive with this win. I mean, Houston against a bad Raiders team, and I know they were banged up on the D line, but I feel like this game should not have been this close. I feel like the Texans were kind of playing with their food. Like it felt like they were just keeping the Raiders in this game long enough to make it competitive, and it's like, well, Houston has a great defense. This offense still is concerning because they did not play well against a Raiders defense that has not been playing well for all of the season. And you'd like to see a Texans team that has a Super Bowl caliber defense, but I don't think a Super Bowl caliber offense play better. For the Raiders, I mean, you keep this game competitive, but you ultimately lose, which is better than what they did last year, where they won too many games at the end and ended up missing out on Cam Ward. Um, Next week, like I said, Giants Raiders for the top pick, and if Vegas wants to have a bright future, they probably want to lose that game. But Pete Carroll is going to want to win that game. Those players out there are going to want to win the game. But if you're a Raiders fan, you probably hope they lose that game. You get the top pick. You get Fernando Mendoza or Dante Moore, and you're able to finally get a franchise quarterback to hopefully be alongside Brock Bowers, Ashton Genty, hopefully an improved offensive line. And this Raiders team, maybe brighter things are in the future for a team that, since Derek Carr's left, has been pretty bad. Moving on to Sunday Night Football, Pats at the Ravens, and I mean, give credit to New England. I mean, down double digits on the road in a very hard place to play, and they were able to play well. I mean, the offense, 15 unanswered points, the defense making plays, and while it was a little bit close, especially with Lamar getting injured, they clinched the playoffs. They made it for the first time since 2021. A new era in New England has started, and this team can still get the number one seed if they win out and Denver loses one more game. Hey, the Pats still have a shot to get that top seed and potentially be having the road to the Super Bowl go through New England. For the Ravens, I mean, this is the game that hopefully does fire John Harbaugh. I mean, this team, despite having no Lamar after the first half, had the lead, and it was a double-digit lead, and then you just stop giving Derrick Henry the ball. It doesn't make any sense. You know, you think that with a double-digit lead, that you would rely on the running game more with your backup quarterback, but for some reason, this team just decides to make the dumbest decisions when they make no sense. And hopefully, the Ravens finally realize that Harbaugh needs to be let go. He needs to be fired because this team is too talented to be blowing double-digit leads. I mean, it even said since 2021, so the past 5 seasons, Harbaugh has blown 12 double-digit leads, 12 double-digit leads, and it's just if your team is continuing to blow these types of leads, it has to come back on the coach, who it seems like all throughout the year has made questionable decisions that make no sense, and then he goes out there on the post game press conference, acting like he did all he could to help the Ravens win, and hopefully this team finally fires him and brings in somebody who can help this team that is Super Bowl caliber finally make it. And then finally, Monday Night Football, Niners at the Colts. I mean, you got to give credit to Kyle Shanahan, Robert Saleh, and this coaching staff with how banged up this Niners team has been. To be 11-4 and potentially get the #1 seed if they win out is crazy. It was close early. The Colts, were going back and forth, but the Niners controlled this game and really just shut down Jonathan Taylor, made Phillip Rivers throw the ball against them, and in the second half, it just wasn't enough. They're 11-4. Like I said, they win out. They get the top seed, and I think Kyle Shanahan, in my opinion, should be the coach of the year with how well he's kept this Niners team despite all the injuries they've had on both the sides of the ball. For the Colts, I mean, they're not technically eliminated, but they're basically eliminated. And it's just heartbreaking because this team was 7-1, felt like they were going to be a Super Bowl contender. Now they're 8-7. They play Jacksonville next week, and then Houston. Most likely going to finish 8-9. I want to say Shane Steichen should be fired, but because when you lose Daniel Jones, it's kind of hard to play well. But it's just this Colts team, once upon a time, was seen as a Super Bowl contender with an elite offense and a promising defense, and it just has not going to form. And the Colts' future is kind of bleak. You trade away 2 first-round picks thinking you're going to go all in. You lose your starting quarterback. Who knows what happens in the offseason with who is going to be the quarterback? Because do you keep Daniel Jones coming off a torn Achilles? What do you do? But that'll do it for today's video. Hope you guys have a great day. Hope you guys hit the like button, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. And I'll catch you guys in the next video. But until then, see y'all and bye.